Hello and welcome. I was going to say the Captain Stable. It's wrong. To the Astropub, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the office hours. How y'all doing? Let me save this. I literally just recorded the full lore tour for today for Anvil. That's going to be released tomorrow morning, my time. But yeah, I gotta edit that and export that after the stream today. So, welcome everybody, welcome chat from both YouTube and from Twitch. How you guys doing? All right, let's get to the office for right now. We'll do. I'll send you the current one that I have, that kind of stuff. Today's title has got me excited. We're going to talk about the Anvil capital ship, and it requires a little bit of understanding of the lore. So we'll talk about that here in a moment. But let's get to the introduction first. How's it going, Viper, Diabolus, Conti? Let me go with channel points and remove some of this stuff because I know it's going to be a problem. Remove that as well. Boop. All right. Conti, thanks so much for that 4 months of subscription. Phantom, thank you so much for that 12 months, a whole year. What I've been doing with my life. I don't know. You've been watching me apparently, which is a terrible idea. Then Badger Boy with 29 months. Or you gifted a sub to Kenneroth. Thank you so much. Welcome. Show me the Anvil capital ship. There's no show. There is tell, though. We'll talk about it here in a moment. I'm looking forward to the Unification War stuff, even if it's a little bit of lore so far. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about that. It's important to keep that into context in terms of stuff. There is no visual of an Anvil capital ship, but there is a lot of context clues which are important, on top of a lot of discussions from the leaks community of their sources. And I say that not to insult the sources or to the leaks folks. It's just because you can't confirm it. It's unconfirmed reports from the sources, and it's just weird that like people started talking about this thing that was in audio, and then suddenly the audio appears in the leaks Discord, like as if they pulled it out because people started talking about it, but. Again, I'm not here to say that the hater or those guys over there are bad or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, I've already talked to them about this. I have doubts about all of the validity of everything, and because I don't know how much of it is actual stuff that's been told to him and how much of it he's just kind of making up based off what else is going on. So I'm not going to get into that because I don't want to argue. I already have too much arguing in this community as it is. I'll just leave it at that. You've given off almost enough to buy a Hornet, $250. It's a lot of money. Total 29 subs. Yeah. That's in your lifetime with here. So, hey heroes. Hey David, how you doing? I can't read crap because I'm smashing my glasses. Ouch. Ooh. You don't have a backup pair? Like, I don't have a backup pair. I've been needing to get one, but I also need to get my eyes checked this summer again. So I actually require glasses. I can see everything fine. I can read everything fine. You'll notice that I squint a little bit sometimes just because of my eyesight isn't great. If I wore glasses, it would be much better. But hey Mason, how's it going? You just started. You do that a lot. It happens a lot. You'll get used to not scratching them or not smashing them. It's just a matter of remembering to put them somewhere and then just kind of constantly, because I always leave mine by the door because I only use them when I drive and I'm out and about. So here's the 30. Thank you, Badger. Thank you, Conti, for gifting that sub to Omega. Thank you for that 30 subs there total in your lifetime there, Badger. Prepare pockets. Here comes the 2K ship. All right, so let me start off with saying I do not believe that they're going to sell an Anvil capital ship at Invictus. There is no indication of that at all. There's nothing that would scream that. However, unlike the other stuff that they've had. However, I wouldn't be surprised if we got an Anvil capital ship at the end of the year. And here's why. So, this is an audio file that was pulled from the game that specifically takes place in, it's being played on the floor of ILW. CIG likes to put these little hints in there a lot because they like to do this to kind of get us hyped, but also to, you know, make us kind of anticipate without giving us a full confirmation. They did the same thing with the Xenothreat audio, which came out 2 years before it actually fully came out. So let's see if we can't find that link. There we go. Here it is.
The UEE Navy is proud to announce that Anvil Aerospace has been invited to a joint engineering research facility that will be opening on MacArthur in the new year. Together, naval and Anvil engineers and scientists are looking to develop the next generation of ship technology.
Now, that seems like innocuous. A little bit of background information, whatever. It's just a little thing. It's like, you know, they're doing this little thing at MacArthur, right? Here's the problem. You don't go to MacArthur to develop ship technology unless you're developing big ship technology. The two ships that we know in lore, in canon, that are built at MacArthur are the Bengal and the Retribution. The two biggest ships in the UEE fleet come from the MacArthur shipyards. Most of the other stuff, like the Idris, is built on Idris, and there's some other places that they build them. A lot of the capital ships are built in Earth orbit. But specifically, MacArthur only has two references in lore. One is the Retribution, the biggest ship humanity's ever built, and the other one is the Bengal carrier. There is absolutely no way that this isn't a hint towards an Anvil capital ship. Period. Exclamation point. Boom. No, MacArthur is on Killian, I believe. The Killian system. Now, for the longest time, I've talked about, and a lot of the community members have talked about, there is this big gap in capital ships that have been referenced in lore and have been referenced by CIG themselves in their own Kickstarter, which is a cruiser, a battle cruiser, and a battleship. We do know that there is a battleship that was once made by the UEE. We've not seen one recently. So the theory is that this might be a cruiser. Now, here's the problem with the theory about a cruiser. If they're making a cruiser, there's no fucking way they're selling it to players. I could be wrong. I could be underestimating the greed of CIG. I hope I'm not, but basically they said that the Dravelin is going to be the biggest ship they ever sell to players. They've lied before or gone back on their word before, so it definitely could happen. But I doubt it, just because CIG has had a lot of opportunities to sell things like the Bengal and haven't. So if they're going to be developing anything, it might be a cruiser and another destroyer, or another ship around the same size as the Polaris. They seem to be, the UEE and CIG seem to be developing more smaller recon vessels, small ships that are designed to have a very specific role, a big punch, a lot of armor, whatever, to kind of deal with those problems. And here's the thing, the Perseus was recently reintroduced into the lore as part of in the lore it was reintroduced, and that's why it's being sold again. I think we might see something the size of the Polaris, but a gunfighter, a tank that is the size of the Polaris. That's my theory, but we'll see. I know the Pegasus was never supposed to be sold. The Pegasus was supposed to be part of Squadron 42. It was actually one of the, it was originally going to be a Bengal carrier that you were part of, and then it was moved to the Pegasus as part of Squadron 42, and then it was moved to the Idris, so. But money, Paul. That's the thing. It's like, I don't believe that they would go back on their word for this, mostly because they could also just develop a smaller ship and take some less time, and they could still charge $1,000 for it. So. Prepare pockets. Okay. Hey, how's it going there, Patrick? Pedro, all I want is Alien Week, and I'm an alien ship lover. Okay. Hello, hey there, SD. Warp drive without jumps. Not going to happen. What manufacturers ship the Bengal and Retribution? So the Bengal is produced by the RSI, and the Retribution is built by Anvil, RSI, Aegis, Origin, MISC. It's built by all the companies, maybe not Consolidated Outland, but because it's too big of a project for one ship manufacturer. So they all work together to build the Retribution. A size of ship for the Polaris that that's like a Perseus and weapons loadout. Don't tempt me with my wallet. I think that's exactly what they'd be doing. Here's the thing. Anvil's design technology, their design scheme is, yes, but what if we had more DACA? This is fantastic, but I want more DACA. DACA, you can never have enough DACA. That is how Anvil builds things. They build flying weapons platforms, things that are tough and things that do a lot of damage. So if they're going to build a ship, a Polaris that does the Perseus thing makes a lot of sense. I like this. Just make it bigger. Yeah. Kind of like the ULA. I don't know about the ULA, but that makes sense. Yes, but what if it had more DACA? Yeah. The Polaris is still great, but it's a missile boat. It's designed to shoot bunches of torpedoes at something and overwhelm an enemy. The advantage of a Polaris over something like this mythical Anvil capital ship, which people in the Leaks community have been throwing around as a Longbow, which makes sense with the arrow, but that kind of theme they like to use either like elemental or weapon stuff. Would make sense. What it would do is you would send out this Anvil ship first. It would just slam into an enemy and take a lot of hits, but try to bring down the shields. And once those shields were down, you'd fly a Polaris in that would just do a quick strike with its torpedoes and fly away. And then the Anvil would try to get away while the ship is exploding. The other ship is exploding. So that would be my theory based off of Anvil's design philosophy and based off of what's the realities of the game. So. But we may also see an Anvil like battle cruiser being introduced. Be like, hey, this is just a smaller battle cruiser, a destroyer escort, if you will. Taurus is taking so long. The Taurus is coming out next patch, and I'd rather the Taurus take longer because the Connie is garbage right now. Question, what about an Anvil Carrier? The one that shoots arrows out like tubes like Galactica. That sounds cool, but it really depends on how do you reload those things and how do you function? Like, what's the gameplay aspect of it? I don't know if we'd see a carrier, maybe a support carrier, but it also doesn't really fit Anvil's design philosophy. Like I said, they're tough, big guns, and tough. That's the kind of the mentality of the Anvil. I mean, think about it. It's an anvil. Ooh, big, heavy anvil. So. Alien Polaris size ship. I don't know if we'd see that. We might. Hey, BS&T. Oh yeah. Right. You're talking about with the Retribution that it's the Retribution's like ULA with the United Launch Alliance. Yes, very similar to that. Sounds like a dreadnought, but don't know if they're part of the history already. Dreadnoughts are. The dreadnought is like a historical dreadnought maybe. The Retribution is a dreadnought. That's its class is a dreadnought or a super dreadnought, which is just big. Maybe like a classical gunboat, like a 19th century gunboat, or like similar like an ironclad, something like that maybe. Yeah, we talked about the fabled cruiser, and it might be, but if it's the cruiser, it won't be sold to players. because CIG said the largest ship they would sell is the Javelin. They could go back on their word. It's not like they couldn't, but I would doubt it because CIG also seems to be skirting away from ships that are larger than the Javelin because they want to be able to have ships that are Javelin or smaller. They want to have a lot more options in that sub cap and small cap range because they could use those a lot faster and they can put into the game. Whereas anything above an 890 jump is going to cause problems. So it makes more sense. The Holy is bigger than the Jav, so you're wrong. I'm sorry, I didn't think about the giant cargo boat that only requires 3 people to run. Also, the Endeavor is longer than that too. But in terms of capital ships, Diablos, still find big ships in game though, right? Yeah, you should be able to find them in game and capture them, but you'd have to take them either from Rex or from other NPCs. I can see them. Let me turn this, increase the size of this because I can't see anything. I can see them obsoleting the Crucible to make a command carrier with 4 pads, enough for size 2 fighters, just way more armored, and okay, maybe. Thoughts on being able to use tractor beams as stasis webifiers to stop smaller ships from running around big ships? Probably not. CIG said they don't like that and it messes with the physics a little bit too much. But if CIG, it was a technical issue. CIG's been asked that before. It's a technical issue. It's designed to stop ships or to move cargo that are stationary. They don't have any propulsion. What about the battle cruiser? Possibly. I would imagine that any cruiser will also have a battle cruiser variant, which is just like an up armored, like a heavy cruiser. Anvil Pegasus? No, the Pegasus is an RSI ship, and it was an escort ship. It was an escort carrier. It was designed to be kind of like half a Bengal. Being that mining is the most complete game loop, do you think we'll see Orion soon? We'll see the Orion as soon as refining and is online, and you can crew an entire Orion without having to take up the entire server. I think that's the 2 things they're waiting for. Why not? What do you mean, why not? I need a whole E so I can just clump 100,000 SEU waste somewhere in the base. No problem, Harvey. Giant cargo kebab? Yes. Yeah, the whole series of the best ships. They're the most common ships, too. Technically, the Endeavor is only the cab, and the Endeavor is workshop, however. Yeah, well, the whole thing, yeah. Oh, right, Paul. I found the info about small-scale arms just being useless against heavier armor. I imagine they do the same with shields. It's just the name for it. Yes, it's essentially it. The thing that you got to remember is that the original idea behind the weapons is energy weapons did well against armor, but had trouble with shields, and ballistic weapons could penetrate shields but bounced off of armor, and you had the distortion guns, which didn't do well against armor, didn't do anything against armor, but did a lot against shields. So you had those balance of this is a shield down. The most moderate one is the one that does okay against shields and does better against armor. And then you've got which is the energy weapons. And then you had the ballistics, which were the great for shield pen, terrible for armor. Thanks for giving that sub to Puffy Blowhole. What do you think is the next gameplay loop will get love will be? Which would you rather see? I'd like to. So what I'd probably see medical get the next one. It seems like that's the one that's getting the most fleshed out. But in terms of what I'd like to see is cargo. Cargo has been around one of the longest gameplay loops that just hasn't gotten all the love it needs. It really needs a lot more love. I think it'll come around the same time, but if medical doesn't require the entirety of Quanta to work, so it's a lot easier. Max crew of the Orion is 7 peeps, according to Matrix of Lies. So you should be able to fully crew it in current server. Yeah, but that's also a long time ago. The Orion's a huge ship, and that also doesn't account for possible increase in size, because CIG's done nothing but increase the size of ships to include things like drone capabilities, flying drones, and also running running refineries. Because I think like even like they say something like the Connie's max crew is 4 or 5 or something like that. And like the freelancers max crew is 2, but it has 5 seats in it. So the max crew limit is not always a good thing because it's an older ship A, and it's also the Matrix of Lies, so it hasn't been updated. I could see an escort carrier from Anvil, but I agree. Polaris-sized gunship is more likely. Anvil wants to be a thorn in the side of Aegis, so it could be just see a smaller, tough Idris. Yeah, basically think like an Idris, but like you have the balance of the Polaris, which is the glass cannon, the Idris, which is the middle weight of that group, and then you have the Anvil whatever as the tough just punch. So it's not very maneuverable, but it hits like the left hand of God and doesn't carry a lot of or doesn't carry any fighters. Maybe has some like bays that are big enough for like a P8 or the cargo god, the Argo MPUV, the multi-purpose utility vehicle. It obviously would have that in there. That would also balance out the 3 kind of archetypes there: the light, fragile glass cannon, the middleweight, and then the heavyweight tank. Seven people to run a Death Star doesn't seem right somehow. Yeah. Hey DJ, how you going? Given the implementation of armor, how do you think this will make scatterguns largely useless against anything bigger than a light fighter? Or do you think being able to knock out thrusters will be the meta? You're going to realize pretty quickly that when they start doing localized damage to like various individual systems rather than the whole damage, you're going to start realizing that you can shoot a ship a lot of times and it'll do nothing. Unless you're hitting the engines, the powers, or some sort of couplings between those two, you're not going to do anything to a ship. You might disable its weapons or its sensors, but that's likely also temporary if they can be able to fix it. So scatterguns are good for close range shots against unarmored targets. And while everyone's like, oh, armor is going to be great, armor is going to add weight, which is going to slow you down and increase your fuel usage. So if you add armor to a light fighter, it will become less useful as a light fighter. You add armor to a heavy fighter, it becomes even less slower and will use more fuel. A lot of people don't realize that fuel consumption is going to be a huge deal. Like, Pyro is 4 times the size of Stanton. It's huge. Its space is huge. And it has no support like Stanton does. So flying from jump point to jump point in Pyro might use too much fuel. So you need some way of carrying those fighters, which are mostly based off of carriers. All of the fighters currently are, except for maybe the Vanguard. So you have to have some way of supporting that in order to use the fighters. So the fighters will always be super effective, but they're going to be a drain on resources to use them in combat. You need to have some way of carrying that to the front lines and also repairing and refueling it in situ. So, like, that's another kind of balancing factor of armor. All I know is that CIG needs to show Anvil some love. Show floor was kind of weak. No holograms pretty much said it all. Yeah, I mean, the only things they could have put on the holograms is the Crucible, I think. Anvil is one of the few, like, developers that has pretty much everything out. It's the Orion and the Crucible, which are the only ones that are not released, I think, unless there's something else. We technically only have 1 frigate-class vessel in the game currently, so it could rather be another Corvette-class vessel, especially considering the number of vessels similar size to the Polaris currently. There's not a lot of vessels similar size to the Polaris. Got it. Vanguard Ares for Pyro. Basically, yeah. If you're going to want to travel that area, you need something like a Freelancer or a Connie. Would probably be a good thing to travel around in Pyro, unless you have some sort of support vessels. Yeah, no kidding. About the size, that is the size, yeah. Round of beers for everybody. Thank you for that Prime sub there, Max. Armor materials and physicalized damage coming along with the actual power management and capacitor gameplay will do a lot to abridge the gap between PvE and PvP. Yes. I mean, it's a meme at this point from most PvP players that capacitors are going to save gameplay. They're not. That's one of the reasons why 3.14 went from this really interesting patch with adding a lot of content and gameplay to being another ship, or not another ship and another planet. But we'll see what happens and how well that changes things. Or a C2 with 8K quantum fuel capacity. 80K quantum fuel capacity. It's going to be a way that you need to be able to transfer some of that fuel out, though, which is why they want to have refueling in before pyro comes in. So, set up a repair, refuel, and rearm business in pyro with a Vulcan. I mean, I think there will be a legitimate business for players down the line for building a colony that's just a station, not a station, just a gas station. Like, pick a moon or a planet that's halfway between these two jump points and build a settlement there with a mining operation to mine quantanium and refine it and refine gas, hydrogen fuel, and you got yourself, Bob's Moon. And with the biggest ball of yarn in the entire goddamn galaxy. Come see Bob's Moon. Bob's Moon, best place in the universe. And you go to Bob's Moon to refill, and then maybe you settle there because you can sell your trinkets there around Bob's Moon. That sort of thing. That's what I mean whenever I say, I think that players' settlements will start becoming a thing when settlements come in, is because it makes a lot more sense to gravitate with each other for common protection than it is to go solo and risk yourself getting raided by NPCs or players. Astropub, is Stanton 6-to-1 ratio due to the system, or will they make a 1-to-1 Earth? No, it's always going to be 6-to-1. The entire game plays and it's not 6-to-1. It's not a 6-to-1 constant. It's I think the moon's 15-to-1 or something like that, or the planet's 50. There's some the ratio of the sizes are slightly different. So moons are slightly larger compared to the planets, but the planets are much smaller compared to what they should be. So Bob will keep the lights on for you. Yeah. What happened with Terra Prime? Do you have news about Terra? Terra's probably not coming out soon. I think a lot of people think that Terra's coming out, but it's not. Terra is, let me kind of walk you through this process, because a lot of people are concerned, hey, we'll talk about the next landing zone too, because I was wrong, sort of. We'll talk about it. Based off of what we've been seeing. So the first, and we'll talk about when we talk about the Galactapedia. The first thing to understand is that Terra is a huge undertaking. It is as important as Sol and as important as Stanton. And while it won't take as long as Stanton, because they've already done Stanton, so they know kind of how to build ships or build planets and landing zones, it would still, I would probably say, take the better part of a year or two to build Terra the way that they've built Stanton, fully fleshed out and everything they needed to, which would just be a waste of time to build Pyro and Nyx and then spend 2 years building another system. Better to build that system with one team over 2 years and spend the rest, put the rest of that team to work on other systems which are smaller and easier to do, like Magnus or Nexus or Null or Vega or Virgil. These are all systems which are smaller than Terra, kind of as important as Stanton, but not really as big as Stanton in terms of its development, but are easier to just churn out because of the way they are, because they are similar enough to Stanton without being as important as Stanton. And getting that 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 systems under your belt over the course of 5 years or so is a lot more impressive to a player base than having 2 systems and another really impressive system that everyone's going to sit there and go, yeah, but it's taking you 2 years to do it. Where's Terra? Where's Terra? Where's Terra? How's Terra? Because people are fucking assholes. And that's just how people roll. So it also makes sense that if you have a brand new team that's designed to build these landing zones and these new systems, that they need some easy wins, some easy stuff that they can go, check, done, and they get that kind of that flow going on. So when they hire more people over time, because I doubt that they have the 100 people they want, they can start putting those people into getting trained and then getting, take the senior and put them in charge of this group. Like, hey, you built this system out, now you're in charge of this group to build this new system out, train these people on how to do that, and slowly work their way out that way. Ellis is pretty big too. Ellis would probably be a good element. called the Perdamal. Ouch. Paul with the best internet voice I've ever heard so far. What you? I just imagine whenever I hear someone go, actually, that's what I hear. Actually, females don't like video games. I hate those people. Terramites. Can do for 415 instead of 480. Okay, and I'm also not sure if they're talking about pledges, but I'd like to note that they have 4 simultaneous Warbond CPUs being offered right now, meaning anyone interested in getting an M2 can do 415 instead of 480. That's nice. That's fine. I've always gone on the record as saying, you do not have to buy anything but a starter package. You don't. I have done multiple runs of just a starter package, from just a starter package to multiple millions. And I usually play that like once a week, that run, and I'm doing fine. It really isn't hard to make money in Star Citizen. And even as they've changed the meta over time, it still isn't hard. Some things get broken, some things don't work as well, but it's not difficult. But if you want to spend the money because you don't want to grind it, or if you want to support the project, you can give your money freely to CIG if you wish. So if you want to get that, the M2 for $415, it's not worth $415, then you can. Your integrity glasses to play, actually. Yeah. That's my sexy bedroom rush now. Hey, baby. How's it going? Oh, nice that butt. Let me smack that butt. Yeah, say my name. Say my name. Anvil captured, take my money. Slow down, Sapper. Slow down. You can be a lad and scroll up a tad, ask a question. You can type, oh yeah, sure, I can look at it again. Kind of off-topic question, but with the scope of increase of homesteads, do you think the original NPC homesteads will come this year, or will they wait for the whole shebang at release once? What's the scope increase? Because I think a lot of people misunderstood that the homesteads was supposed to be some sort of building mechanic, when it was really just a way to flesh out planets like Hurston with a new type of building, that, you know, desert planets that have atmosphere to make them more homely, to build towns and such after them. That's the question. I run illegal data downloads and 890 jump missions for money. Made enough to upgrade my ships with money left. Money isn't hard to get. It isn't. No, the reputation is going to be the hardest thing to do. The Anvil cap ship coming is a hybrid carrier Corvette with some pew-pews, anti-fighter missiles. We don't know exactly what it is yet. If that's what the leaks are saying, that sounds great. But again, I would definitely lean towards heavier combat ship because of the Aegis style, and definitely on the lower end of things because CIG can sell that easier. Smaller numbers of players to use it. And we'll see if it's a Corvette or a frigate or something like that. But it definitely needs to be something that complements the Polaris and the Idris, something that the Idris and the Polaris don't necessarily give. So, like, if you had a Anvil ship that relied on its torpedoes and had lots of fighter bays, what you would have is just a Polaris with more fighter bays, and people would be cool. Why do I buy a Polaris then? I'll just buy this Anvil ship, and that defeats the purpose of having a Polaris. So it needs to fill a role that the Polaris or the Idris doesn't already fill. Polaris is this like glass cannon, punch above its weight class, Bruce Lee looking motherfucker who just goes in with a bunch of torpedoes and knocks out a target and has a fighter bay. And the Idris is designed to have lots of fighters, long range support and such like that. So it makes more sense for an Anvil ship to be more gunned up, because that's what Anvils do. Maybe have some fighter support, but not nearly the same size or the amount as the Polaris, because that's kind of the whole thing of the Polaris. So we'll see, but that's what we'll see. It's coming November with a Crusader fighter bomber. We'll see about that too, because the same leaks people said that we're going to get the Achilles fighter bomber from a Crusader at Invictus, and it didn't happen. So I was gonna. Okay, thank you, Diablos. This Bruce Lee motherfucking ship. It's a Bruce Lee ship. It punches above its weight class. That's what I'm gonna start calling those ships that are punch above their weight class. They're not punch above their weight class. They're Bruce Lee's. You look at this, go, oh, that's he's a small little guy, and then you're just on the floor bleeding suddenly. Like. The Jav, if people didn't realize, it fires size 12 torpedoes. So the Jav as a Polaris and a Perseus combined. Yes, kind of like that. That's what I'd imagine. Just Anvil does not make light ships. There is no such thing as light in Anvil's arsenal. Even the Arrow is not light. It's probably the lightest Anvil ship that exists. The F8 is a good example of like, and a Carrick are good designs of like examples of Anvil. They do not build light. They build Kiev. they build Tonkatov. Will we be able to build our own homesteads? Yes, just not initially. How much should everyone lose their minds if we get a Xi'an Star Runner next week for Alien Week? Likely not a Star Runner. It's going to be the transport ship that they teased or that they talked about in 2019. We'll talk about that here in a bit. They build Lehman Russ. Yes, it's a good way of putting it. They build Lehman Russ, both the tank and the Primarch. Fighter Bomber got moved to November, not to overshadow the C2, M2, and the Tonk release. Again, that's an interesting way of saying it and to backtrack it now that they've been wrong. I'm not shitting on it. I'm just saying that's a backtrack from what they've said. Kind of like how the 400i was supposed to release in the earlier this year too, and then it keeps getting pushed back. I'm sure it has. It's just very convenient that it happened after the fact, after everyone's already released it, and now this information comes out. So we'll see. And things do change. The plans that CIG makes do change at times. All it takes is Chris Roberts to look at a concept and go, no, and then they completely redesign it. It's happened multiple times with the Banu Merchantman, and it happened at least 3 times with the fucking Hornet. So we'll see. Which subclass of ship do you think will be the most intimidating versus other orgs? Probably the frigate. The Idris is a really intimidating ship when you see its capabilities. It requires a lot of people to run it, but it is a absolute beat stick against pretty much anything you can throw at it. So they're going to be who's going to name their ship Capo Bruce Lee? C8 Pisces is pretty light. There's nothing light about the C8 Pisces. Take one look at that thing and tell me it's light. It's a brick. It's a brick with wings. How do you feel about the Terrapin, though? It has very quickly become overshadowed by the other lineup. I think it's become overshadowed simply because the Terrapin, its role is not in game yet. It's like a information ship. It's designed to scan and get a lot of information. Until we get more in-depth scanners and like sensor linking to be able to link your sensors with a command and control ship, the Terrapin seems useless. But so is the Tracker. You'll have to do something with that. Paul, minor off topic. I'm looking to start a small Krieger army now. I'm thinking about getting a 3D printer just because I want to start like a revolutionary Grot army at some point, and also do stuff like that, like print off like other things like people ask like me to do like Star Citizenships or other things like that too. So. Let's see what else we got. I just want an Anvil Corvette or a frigate that has a big guns to brawl with other ships. Not really too interested in a carrier. Yeah, I mean, we have enough carriers. I don't think. I mean, it might make sense for it to be able to hold ships like the Hercules in terms of just allowing it to have support. But making another carrier seems like waste because you also have the Kraken exists too. It becomes like, okay, well, why does the Kraken exist? A railgun Corvette we don't have. That's a good example too. Slap a size 9 railgun on the bottom of an Idris, on the bottom of an Anvil ship, and you got yourself a Corvette. You got yourself a mean little bitch. That thing is going to kill things. It'd probably blow itself up, but it's going to kill things along the way. For those weebs out there, Megumin, the Megumin ship, just explosions. I don't go any higher. I go at 11 and no lower. The Terrapin is Anvil's herald. They are forgotten a stepchild of Star Citizen. They just were waiting for more content to come in. When it shoots, it goes in reverse. Yes, Kamasakura. Do you think the Nautilus will get more mine types, such as early warning radar mines, missile pod mines? Yeah, I think the initial 2 mines that they have are just they're a prototype. They're essentially what comes with it, what the planning to play around with it. And once they get those to work, then they'll start developing more mines, because once they have the base thing, they can work on it. So I'd love to see a large CNC E-War AWACS type ship like the E3 Sentry. I think you could probably see that in a modification to the Starliner, or it's definitely a Crusader style ship, either Crusader or MISC. MISC doesn't do a lot of military ships. I think Crusader is the best option for that, honestly. They kind of fit that role really well. With they already showed that with the Hercules, so. The UEE uses Mercury as a strategic data carrier and a blockade runner. Yeah. Badger boy, thank you for that. Upgraded to that tier 3. Do you think we'll see more ships VIX coming for 314 other than the Taurus? Most definitely. We're definitely going to see something coming in 314 other than the Taurus. Maybe 1, maybe 2 ships total, but like CIG doesn't not release ships. It's how they make money. I would be very surprised, let me put it that way, if they only released the Taurus and nothing else came out. It might be something like the Rock DS, where it's a current ship that we have, but slightly modified. But they're going to release something. If mines are disarmed by Nemo drones, can any ship capable of using drones be minesweepers? In theory. Yeah, there used to be the Star Hunter, or the Star Seeker, which was an AWACS Starliner. But they've also kind of backtracked on the Starliner and said those were configurations that they're thinking about, but they're not actual variants. Because if you look at the variants, a lot of those variants ended up becoming other ships. The Star Seeker became the Mercury Star Runner, and the Star Lifter became the Star Lifter, the Hercules. Because there was a variant that was just a cargo version called the Star Lifter, or something like that, which was in there as well. The only one that's missing is the Star Hunter, which is a combat ship, but then you've got the Ares Star Fighter, which is a combat ship. So like basically they took a lot of the interesting concepts from the Star Lifter's module or variants and then built other ships instead of using it for those. So Carrick feels like a solid AWACS. It probably could be used as one. But it's more of a long-range exploration vessel. An AWACS would be something that would be used with fighters in a short-term engagement sort of thing. How will E-War work in the future of Star Citizen? It's not entirely known yet, but we do know we're going to have hacking gameplay in the near future. And hacking is one of those things they want to be able to do, as well as things like shrouding, like things like noise to kind of throw up and obscure sensors from an area, those sorts of things. So. I believe the scanners are used for different purposes. Polaris is for targets, and Carrick is for exploration and surveying. Yeah, they have different purposes. We don't know how granular they're going to do for the sensors, though. I hope that they do really granular for like blades for the sensors. Like sensors get their own blades or get their own tech, so you have different sensors for different things. But we'll see. By the way, anyone who wants to join tonight's lore tour, now would be a good time to head to Microtech. Yes, we're going to do a lore tour towards the end of the stream. which for those of you who've never done this before, I take people around and show you, talk about the ships. So if you miss the lore tour physically, or if you're not here watching it, I'll also have a pre-recorded version that I pre-recorded before the stream, and I'm going to put that up on YouTube tomorrow. So I'm still waiting for you to use my Mixmaster. Dude, that's the only reason why the Astropub was even conceived, was because of the Mixmaster. I came up with the idea because of that. I would love to see E-War as hacking into other ship sensors and be able to shut stuff off overheat systems. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the other big thing. For those of you who missed us, we're talking about the Anvil capital ship. Let me go play it one more time so you can hear the actual audio, and I'll explain it one more time, and then we'll move on.
The UEE Navy is proud to announce that Anvil Aerospace has been invited to a joint engineering research facility that will be opening on MacArthur in the new year. Together, naval and Anvil engineers and scientists are looking to develop the next generation of ship technology.
Okay, that seems kind of innocuous, right? You've got an announcement that talks about Anvil and the UEE are working together to develop the next generation ship technology. It could be anything, but there's a key word in there: MacArthur. MacArthur Naval Base, or the naval yards of MacArthur, are where the biggest ships in the UEE are built. They don't build fighters at MacArthur. They build capital ships. Both the Bengal and the Retribution were first built there. MacArthur is also the place where all UEE Marine, Army, and Navy recruits go first to be trained as pilots, Marines, starmen, grunts, so on and so forth. They call them forges, is where they forge the future of the UEE. You go to these training camps. So likelihood, if Anvil is going to MacArthur to talk with the UEE, they build in a big ship. Some of the lore team recorded voiceovers to the spaceports. I wouldn't be surprised at that now. Anvil Corvette. Yeah, that's the theory. I'm thinking that we'll probably see an Anvil battle cruiser or cruiser, but it won't be available for players. We'll probably more likely see a Corvette or frigates class, because CIG loves to build those sizes because they fit the perfect amount for multi-crew gameplay without requiring like the javelin levels of people to be able to use them. So is MacArthur like Kuwait of Star Citizen? It's more like Fort Bragg of Star Citizen. It's like a mixture of, or like, what is the Marine? It's like San Diego, I think, is where there's a base where the Marines go to train. Pendleton, yeah. It's like Pendleton meets what's it called? What is the place where they build all the ships? Annapolis. It's like Pendleton meets Annapolis. Crucible future release announcement, maybe when they get repair. When the repair's in game, yeah, but we'll probably more likely have the Vulcan before we have the Crucible. Anvil battleship, maybe, but if those battleships and battlecruisers are available, we won't see them as player-owned ships. They'll be UEE support ships only, like the Bengal. Do I think the A2 is underrated? I think it's overrated. I think a lot of people are putting a lot of effort into getting what's essentially a one-trick pony when you can get the M2, which is basically the same thing with the bombs and has more cargo space. But do you think we'll see the Apollo in 2022 if they can get the medical gameplay out this year? Yeah, at some point, probably towards the end of the year. Because the Apollo doesn't just use medical gameplay, though. It also uses drone gameplay. Like, CIG is butting up against some major tech that they haven't developed yet, like drones, which take a huge part. It's part of the Carrick. It's part of the Vulcan. It's part of the Nautilus. Drones are a huge thing now, and for like that generation of ships, similar to like modularization was for earlier versions of ships. Seiji seems to go in like waves of ideas that they like to throw out there. No, that's the big one. So, and of course, medical gameplay still need to do it. The A2 cinematic dropping the bomb bothers me. It falls out cockeyed. The Bay cockeyed. They will probably fall out cockeyed. They're not going to be like direct like that. Do I see any potential pledges or in-game modular kits for the Corvettes? Maybe. I mean, I don't think we'll see a ton of them, but we might see some of that. It really depends on what CIG's modularity design and how that works, because that's been removed from the roadmap. So people only care about the most effective tactics available ship. I think that the A2 will be effective. I think it's just an overpriced ship for what it does. I think it's going to be a very niche ship for a very niche sort of situation, which you might find yourself in once in a while in Star Citizen, but it's not something that's going to be common. But it's definitely going to have its uses. But I also think that for the price it has, that's a lot of money you're paying for very, very rare usage. This is saying for the guy who owns a Tonk. I have an LTI Tonk, and I like it. It's very rarely going to be used, except for when I specifically want to use it. But it's also $100. It's like way overpriced for what it is. I still got it though. A Perseus would be bigger and more guns, plus a Perseus but bigger with more guns, plus a hangar is what I'd hope from Anvil Corvette. Exactly. That's essentially what I would say. Something that maybe the same size as the hangar would be something the same size as like a Polaris, but not something that would outshine a Polaris, but would be differently focused compared to the missile boat heavy Polaris. Be more a few big guns that it fires, like maybe just spitballing. You take the 2 turrets from the Perseus and you slap the size 9 railgun from the Idris, and you call it a day. You have a giant railgun and 2 turrets that shoot 2 size 7 guns, and you have some smaller light support remote turrets that shoot down missiles and go and engage fighters. And then you just slap a bunch of armor on it and a small engine. You know, put the engines from the Carrick on that bad boy, and you just go. The Anvil blimp? No, the Anvil Hindenburg. Would it have a size 10 weapon? The size, I think isn't the railgun on the Idris size 9? The Drake Hindenburg would be more on brand. Zeppelin, the Drake Zeppelin, or the Drake F Zeppelin would work too, but I mean the Anvil Zeppelin, or the Anvil Bismarck. Another thing that a viewer sent me. By the way, I have a P.O. box now. We'll figure that out at some point. But a viewer said, "Hey, Paul, do you have a P.O. box?" And I was like, "I needed to get a P.O. box too," so I got a P.O. box. I gave it to the person because he's like, "I got something for you. I got a gift." I'm like, "Okay, cool." So here it is. It got sent. I picked it up today, sort of today. It's not complete yet, but it was sent to me in pieces. But this is essentially what it was. I haven't messed anything with this. For 40K fans, you may know what this is. I was kind of insane, the fact that this was sent to me. I'm like, what? No, this can't be sent to me. What the fuck? It's the turret is magnetized, but Anvil Tripits, Anvil Titanic. Warhammer 40K, yeah, that's a Bane blade. So I've got to assemble, like repiece together some of the tracks, and but it's already been primed, so I'm good to go. I just gotta. That's gonna be my summer project, is to paint the Baneblade, and it's gonna be painted like this, in this style. All right. Now I just need 2 more. I can barely afford one of those damn things on the battlefield. Where was the Anvil capital ships teased? I've already said it earlier in the video, or in the in the broadcast, but there was a if you go to the floor of Anvil, the Anvil Aerospace floor, I'll do it one more time, so that, because I know what's going to happen is every time, because it's the eye-catching, everyone watched this video because of this. People are going to like ask, wait, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Let me pull it all the way up. Go back all the way up. It's on the floor, but someone extracted the Lynx guys extracted the audio from the floor as well, so we have it actually available. Come on. Here we go. Here we go.
The UEE Navy is proud to announce that Anvil Aerospace has been invited to a joint engineering research facility that will be opening on MacArthur in the new year. Together, naval and Anvil engineers and scientists are looking to develop the next generation of ship technology.
Now, if you're not familiar with the lore, that's just a little piece of fluff in the background. Whatever. That means maybe they're developing a ship or not. If Anvil is going to MacArthur, there is no way they are not developing a capital ship. MacArthur is the birthplace of the Bengal and the birthplace of the Retribution, the 2 biggest ships in the UEE fleet. If Anvil is building something at MacArthur, they're building something big. So the oft-gone to is the battle cruiser or cruiser, but if that was the case, they wouldn't be selling them to players. So the likelihood as well is that they're at the very least selling are going to be building to a Corvette, something along the lines as a gunned up Polaris would be my guess. So that you can listen to it. You can go to the floor right now and listen to that audio. It plays pretty frequently on there, and so we'll do that here as well. Oh, they hate Drake. They ain't gonna invite Drake for shit. Or an all-gun destroyer. Maybe. I don't think CIG is going to build any destroyers because the Javelin is huge, and they had some struggles with the Javelin in terms of its building, as well as to make it fun. That, like, you'll hear this often from developers, that there's technical ability and then there's fun. Technically, you can get lots of players into lots of games that have limited to 12 or 20 players per multiplayer match. And a lot of those games probably were tested with like 30 or 40 players in them because like, hey, let's put as many players in there as possible. But then they didn't get the feel right, and it becomes less of a interesting gameplay. The Javelin is so big that unless you're actively in combat in those turrets, I can't imagine Javelins being very fun to operate unless you're the captain. And while that's great for the captain, that's still like, there are 15 turrets in that thing. So between the captain, the turret operators, the engineers, you're looking at close to 20 to 30 people just to operate that. That's a huge number of people. And I don't think CIG wants to develop any capital ships that size, again, for players to use, because they'd rather have them smaller so they can kind of like more fine-tune that multiplayer experience. So, I definitely think it's an all-gun Corvette with maybe some light to no carrier support. What happened with the Denver? Can you consider it like a carrier too? It's sort of a carrier, but it's not really. It's more of it's a repair ship that can carry one fighter. It's more of a support ship than a carrier, because carriers also have some sort of weapons on it. I don't think there's much weapons there. Think of all the janitorial gameplay. Shut up, Cyberwolf. What about an Anvil biodome for Homesteads? That would more likely fall under the realm of Consolidated Outland or Drake, honestly. Or RSI. Or MISS. Not Anvil. Anvil is mostly military. They do some civilian stuff, like they got the Orion, but that would be interesting. An all-gun Corvette with room for a tonk. Because you could then technically put a fighter in there. Oh. That's actually pretty brilliant there, Mason. That I could see that. Because you have a specific hangar bay for the Polaris. So when you have a cargo bay where you can put in a vehicle like a Nova, then you could technically put something else in there. Oh, that'd be really cool. Is Orion RSI? It might be RSI. I'm thinking I get my stuff. Ryan's RSI. So yeah, Anvil doesn't do anything but the Carrick, and the Carrick is even a military ship. They don't do any non-military ships other than the Crucible. The Consolidated Outland has a cap. It's the Pioneer, which is technically a capital ship, the same way that a Endeavor is technically a capital ship. Anvil 400i? Yeah. Yeah. Make it so the Nova becomes another plug-in turret when it's inside the ship. That would be disgusting, and I love it. We have 4 size 7 turret over two turrets and a size 9 railgun. And if you don't feel like you have enough power, you can stick a tonk in there and hit it with a size 5. Like, all right, let's go over because we've been talking about this for an hour. Let's go over the lore updates, because there's some more lore updates in there that we'll talk a little bit about, the cheeky lore updates, and then we'll do the Anvil lore tour. So, Galactapedia update. I'm going to do this, and then we're going to go to press. All right. So we're going to go with the Magnus system. Now, this is the big one. They haven't changed the UEE and UEN because it's it was discovered under the UNE, not the UEE. And it also says it was discovered in 2499. Then it says here it's 2516. There's lots of problems here. But it has connections to Stanton, Ellis, and Terra. And the fact that this is being fleshed out tells me that Magnus is likely going to be the system that's built after Nyx, which makes sense. Magnus has a jump point to Stanton, as well as to and it's a UEE represented system. It's Space Detroit is the best way of saying it. It used to be super popular, and then it eventually kind of went away. So, and it's where Triggerfish is located, which is the mythical 4th planet that doesn't exist in the Number of Planets 3, and it's where the term Triggerfish comes from. It's kind of like a snipe hunt. It has Borea, which is the landing zone, or is the planet Borea, and the landing zone that we have is. It should say here somewhere. Newcastle. So you've got Newcastle, Borea. It's also the home of Drake Interplanetary. So now this is a shorter article, which is on Terra. which is interesting. It's one of the best systems in the game in terms of like, or in the UEE, in terms of its economic power. It is really a rival to Sol in terms of its power. And then we've got different moons and other things of Terra. The reason why I don't think we're going to see a lot of Terra being discussed has a lot to do with the fact that Terra is important, but it's not as fleshed out as the Magnus system is in here. So Terra system Arrow. Yeah, get to Arrow Terra 1. Now, the human Xi'an trade agreement, House Nataak. I can't say it right. Negatak. I can't say it right. Jail, my Xi'an is terrible. Gatak, maybe. Fight me, Admiral. Terra's the better. But snipes are real things. They are, but whenever you're sent on a snipe hunt in America, you're not going to find anything. So let's look at Gatak. The UNE Council and the Unification Wars. So these are the big ones. So in 2855, this is life. But in 2947, Kelos Costigan, the former imperator of the UEE, signed an agreement with the Xi'an specifically to open up trade relations between the two empires. The first time ever. Essentially, what this allowed was that humans could sell their wares in Xi'an space, and Xi'an companies could open up companies and sell their wares in human space. And the two big ones that are selling stuff are Apoa and Gatak are the two big companies that are selling ships. There's also a fuel company. I can't remember the name of it, but there's a fuel company that specifically has opened up that was run by the Xi'an in human space as well. Interesting, the F8 has a full laser loadout, no ballistics. Let's look at that. They actually tried to assassinate Costigan. The anti-Xeno wing of the human government tried to assassinate Costigan because of it, and that's one of the reasons that Xenothreat specifically stated in their statement about invading Stanton was the human Xi'an trade agreement, or the Huxaw. It's one of the reasons why they invaded. Now, this is the reason why Apoa and House, I'm not going to try to pronounce it again because I keep saying Gatak, is one of the major houses, why they're here. So, for those, again, who need a little bit of a refresher on Xi'an culture, is that the Xi'an houses are specifically designed with one company in mind. So each house in the Xi'an Empire runs one specific industry. And the only way they can get other goods and services is to work with other houses to work together. This allows them to be unified in the fact that they all specialize in one thing. They can get really good at that one thing, but then they also can distribute it to other houses. And the minor houses of the Xi'an Empire don't do nearly as cool stuff. So like and the houses switch up their things all the time. So like if one house falls out of favor with the Emperor and they make guns, then all the other minor houses are going to start competing for the spot to become the gun maker of the Xi'an. So they're going to try to compete with better designs from one another and all kind of stuff to impress the Emperor. And if the Emperor likes it, then they grant them that title as being able to make that, and then their status rises in the Empire. So it's very important that each company in the Xi'an Empire is also its own house. And a house is kind of like a family in a feudal sense. You have people who are married by blood, but you also have people who are there by treaty, kind of by oath, who are sworn to the house. You could have an entire planet that is sworn to a house, or an entire series of planets that are sworn to a house, depending on where they are. So, Sounds like the Tau Empire. Sort of. It's kind of like the Forge worlds of the 40K. And the Mechanicus, where they each are really good at one thing. They can make some other things, but they're really, really good at one thing, and they distribute that to the rest of the forges for need be, that kind of stuff. House Atreides, the spice must flow. Yeah, I would imagine that has a huge impact on these. The Dune has a huge impact of this as well. Now, 3 of the elders perished alongside the original elders. Perished alongside Ru'a when the House Kalo, one of the 4 major houses, unintentionally poisoned the atmosphere of the Xi'an homeworld when they're trying to assassinate somebody. When Ru'a was made the first imperial house in the aftermath of the tragedy, newly elevated Emperor Yaleje Ru'a rewarded Gatak for their service by granting them exclusive rights to build industrial spacecraft for the Xi'an in perpetuity. Today, Gatak owns and operates Gatak Manufacturing and maintains close familiar ties with the current imperial house. So these guys are the Misk of the Xi'an Empire. They build nothing but industrial ships. Kind of like if Misk and Argo had a baby. And Grey Cat. If those 3 companies were just one company, that's the Gatak. So, Gatak is the commercial and industrial spacecraft manufacturer located in Hoyton 2, Tele. The company has a reputation in the Xi'an Empire for producing cutting-edge and reliable cargo ships. After the 2947 Human-Xi'an Trade Initiative, Huxal, went into effect, the company began funding research to create spacecraft adapted to the needs of both Xi'an and humans. It's expected to unveil the fruit of its efforts in the early 2950s. So not only do we know that Magnus is the next system coming into the game, but we know that the next ship is coming in is going to be a Xi'an cargo ship. Pay attention to the lore, people. I swear to God. Do I have to say this again? Do I ever think we'll see cruisers or battle cruisers in Squadron 42 Star Citizen? Yeah, probably not in Squadron 42, but maybe after that. The Xi'an merchantman, yeah. Oh, my Banu is terrible. And my Xi'an sucks. And my Tavaran just sounds like chicken speak. All right, so this is the Emperor, that kind of a little flesh out of that. The Emperor is duty to make decisions that affect all Xi'an while adhering to the tenets of Li Tova and Xi'an law, while considering the advice of the Council of Three, which is every Xi'an house has like kind of a high council of 3 elders. The Emperor also acts as the head of the imperial bureaucracy and ceremonially adopts all service members into the house and the imperial house until their service is ended, symbolizing the unity of the Xi'an people for the collective good. An inherited position, the imperatorship is passed down from mother to daughter in the regent Xi'an house, or in uncommon cases from mother to son. While male Xi'an can become emperor in their own right, they cannot pass onto the position to their descendants. Upon death or abdication of a male emperor who has no female relatives, another house is chosen by the Council of Three to take his and his line's place, and a new imperial age begins. That's the important thing to remember, is that the Xi'an are matrilineal, not patrilineal. The males can inherit the position, but women are considered, and they're still called the emperor because that's the translation. There is no empress in the Xi'an Empire. There's the emperor, including female emperors. They make great pizzas, yes. So I'm guessing that we'll only be able to be human pilots as opposed to Devarin or Banu. That's at least initially. Eventually, they may release expansions that allows for players to choose to be Banu or Xi'an or Tevarin. But that's years away. That's so long away that we all may be dead by then. How do you say the Redeemer is a terrible ship in Xi'an? That's how you say that. Jail, can you tell me if this is correct or not? Lore rules. It's just very important to know the lore because it helps you a lot with understanding what CIG is planning, because the way that they build things is they come up with an idea, they send it to the lore team fluffs some of the stuff out to help them out, sends it back to the teams who are making stuff. Those teams build it out and build the gameplay. Then at the end, they send it back to the lore team, who then corrects the fluff and moves things around a little bit to focus on the gameplay that they do, and then they release it. So lore is at the very beginning and the very end of the process of making anything in Star Citizen. So when the lore gets updated, especially with the Galactapedia, you pay attention because that's what they're working on. That's stuff that they've recently finished or recently fleshed out and have given to Sherry, who is the archivist, who is the one responsible for updating all of this information. So she's the one who's periodically putting this stuff out there. So this is stuff that's been in lore for a long time or is recently finished and has been pushed to her to archive it in the Galactapedia. So that's why you pay attention to this shit, people. You think I just like stories? I mean, I do, but like, fucking shit. I called the goddamn Scorpius because of lore. Combination of other things, but come on. Don't not buy the Redeemer because of my hatred of it. If you want to buy the Redeemer for its purpose, it's plenty okay to buy the Redeemer. I just hate it. So they all make sandwiches. The Sandwich Dynasty. I really want to know about the Sandwich Dynasty. CIG, tell me more about the sandwich makers of Xi'an. Do they use paninis? Do they do toasted bread good? What about the artisanal pizza makers of the Xi'an? You brought the Crucible today? Nice. I like the Scorpius better and couldn't help myself. All right, so this is the other thing. This is actually something that Jail requested that they actually did for us, which is nice. Thank you, Sherry and team, because it's something that's brought up a lot, and we wanted to kind of have a little bit more. This is only referenced in one sentence in one part of a story that's only available to backers, to Jump Point, not backers, to Jump Point subscribers up until very recently, called The Gift from Baba. And this is about the Unification Wars, and specifically the United Nations of Earth Council. So, the UN Security Council, the current UN Security Council, let me look up how many people there are. "15 members. Essentially, what the United Nations of Earth is the UN, but an official government. Expanse, think. And the Security Council is what was turned into the United Nations of Earth Council, I think. So you have a rotating group of 15 nations, which are which kind of make all of the big decisions for the UN, but they have to apply everything to the Senate, which is a unified government that has a representative from all the other nations of Earth. This was developed in 2380. And was made it all the way up to 2523 when it was replaced by the UPE. Now, it worked great when you had most of the nations of Earth still controlling most of the other locations in the universe. But as humanity began to spread out, things got a lot more complicated when you had more people off Earth than on Earth, but Earth still controlled a lot of this information. A lot of people deep in brand new colonies far away from Earth didn't have representation for the UNE, but were still under the UNE protection. So they demanded more representation, which then got it reformed into the UPE, where the Senate then got extended out to the various planets, and the council shrank to 3 members that were elected rather than a council of 15 or so. Is Jail at CIG? Jail, Jale. Jail. No, Jail is... He is a content creator. If you've listened to the Lore Citizen podcast, he's one of the voices in the Lore Citizen podcast. You should go watch his stuff. He does great stuff. But he's very involved in the Star Citizen tools. He's like a one-man wiki updater. He's very involved in the Star Citizen tools. website. He gets obsessed with things like he's right now trying to chase down all of the references to the UEE capital ships, military ships, and names and categorize all of them that he can find. Why is it we always find ourselves in some alliance-friendly bar come U-Day, Captain? We'll talk about the Unification Wars in a bit. Is the arrow not light? It's light. But it's the lightest Anvil's ever made. She is light. She's bigger than the fucking Gladius, guys. But she's light. That's why her wings fold up, because she can't fit into the Idris without her wings folded up. Jail speaks Xi'an better than the Xi'an. Yeah. Didn't someone in the Discord? Jake. Hashtag blame Jake. You just made, okay. The Astropub, when he reads the lore is and notice something's being hidden. Yes. This is me. 100% me. I need like the like a tinfoil hat that I can pull up and then be like, so basically. All right, so why is the UNE Council important? Because the UNE Council was formed in 2380, I think. 2380, yeah. And literally the same year that the UNE was formed, a crew, stop it, go back. A crew of a ship called the Stanley, a warship registered to the former country of Machiano, mutinied and threatened to attack multiple cities on Earth unless the government reverted to its pre-unified form. The UNE Council mobilized the military and successfully disabled and captured the Stanley. However, 6 more warships rebelled, and fighting broke out in earnest. Although the first war ended with the defeat of the anti-unificationists in early 2381, a second war erupted that same year when UNE Marines clashed with separatist rebels who had created fortifications on Mars, on the Mars frontier. A third and final war concluded on July 29th of July 2384 in the skies above New York City when anti-unificationists who did not surrender fled to the nearest jump points, forming the first known independent space-based pirate gangs. The Stanley was a naval ship. It was a naval ship that was technically a new UNE ship, but was still under the control of its original home country. You're welcome. I made that as you were about to be called. You're going on about how I called the Scorpius. I called the Scorpius. I get it. Why do longbows shoot arrows? But we'll see. That just may be a reference to the fact that it has arrows. That doesn't necessarily that like the arrow exists. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a reference to the arrows. The longbow is a type of carrier too, or a type of Corvette. In some space games. I can't remember which one. Was it Homeworld that you had the longbow? Let me look it up. Oh, it's in Firefly. It's Longbow class patrol cruiser. A ship that you used in the Union of Allied Planets Navy. Hey, hoo-ha-ha, proceed. How's it going, Tone? I'm looking at the star map on the website, and it says that Aramis, Vega 2, is under Vandal attack. It said that since it was originally updated in 2945. It's always been said that. 2945 was when Vega was attacked, and it hasn't been updated since then. Does the ballista shoot really big arrows? That's a good question. Yeah, you also have the ballista, which shoots bolts. So you have Marines fighting on Mars, yeah. So the point of this, of me talking about this, is that the Unification Wars show that the idea of moving to the United Nations of Earth was not something that was necessarily agreed on by everyone, especially the military. And while it wasn't a huge deal, it did experience some physical pushback from people. And eventually it was accepted. And the original people who lost that war fled and became the first pirate gangs, like the Nova Riders. So when we think of the gangs and we think of like Xenothreat, you think of Xenothreat as a gang. It's not really a gang. These gangs don't really work as pirate gangs. They're more like rebels. They are always and have always been anti-authoritarian rebels and anarchists from the very beginning. Piracy is just a way they make money. Now, some people fall into it because money is more important, but generally speaking, the philosophy of these guys and gals and robots, or some degree of robotic cyborgs, is fuck the UEE, fuck the man. You wouldn't fall into these people if you weren't similarly disliked it. So, long siege on Vega, yeah. Yeah. All right. I think that's it. There's not a lot of other stuff to talk about here, so let's go back to the office. And let me fire up the game so we can do this lore tour. Group says pirate gangs. Why did Buster invite me to a party? No, Buster. All right, so add me as a friend if you want to on game, if you want to join us for this lore tour. For those of you who have missed us talking about the Anvil Cap ship, we talked about it at the very beginning of the stream. So if you want to do the lore tour, send me an invite, a friend invite. I'm actually going to restart this real quickly because I think I need to restart to get more people on here. That's more nuanced. I mean, there are some people like the Xenothreat, which are assholes. But then you also have people like Nyx, who are mostly harmless hippies. And then you have people like Denizens of Spider, who are legitimately forming a goddamn government. So, yeah, I know there's a friend where only 50, a bug where only 50 friends show up. But I want to make sure that I can get people to... Why are you... Invite to party. Muggin'? Okay. The Astropub. The Astropub. With the THE in the front of it. Carpet bomb Nyx. Pickleskin is just getting an AT so it can commit war crimes. You don't have my PC? It's alright, Max. You can watch along with us. Do you think Terra will eventually split off and form its own faction in the UEE? Yes, I do 100% believe that. The extra pube. I invited you, the best alpaca, whoever you are. I may not have, you may need to re-add me, yeah. If you try to add me if you don't see me. But yeah, I definitely think that Terra is going to split off and form its own faction. That's kind of what's going to happen eventually. The Empire will split in two, but I think the players will have a say in it. CIG doesn't want to do anything without the players having some sort of involvement in it, especially big major event things. They don't like railroading things. Even Xenothreat had failure states. If the community did not do well at Xenothreat, there was a failure state for Xenothreat. You sent me a party invite, Admiral, but I don't see you for some reason. You may have to just join in on me. Round of beers. The Astropub. Yeah. The UE is broken, unwieldy, and corrupt, but capable of good. Exactly. It's... The UE is not good in terms of its current situation, but is the best option available, considering the alternatives. It'd just be a memorial? Yeah. If the Xenothreat, if you failed at Xenothreat, then there'd be no Warhammer at all, and it would just be a memorial. Yeah. Tashiro, I don't see you online if you're in there. Send me another invite and I'll get that for you. Is that background in the 300 series? No, it's Carrick. Now I'm curious, what was the failure state? There was audio files floating around for the failure state, but we don't know exactly what it was. Were Xenothreat going to blow up Olisar if they weren't to be defeated? There was no records that they were going to blow up Olisar. There's still a lot of discussion about if Olisar is going to be blown up or not. I feel like it might just get replaced, but we'll see. Watching, but only 30 likes. Rally Brothers, to the like button. Thank you. We'll get more people. A lot of people like to watch this after the fact because I'm so late in the evening or so early in the morning for most Europeans that they'll watch this the next day. You see the Pico. No, I'm at work and online. Just want to be friended with you. Yeah, just send me a friend request at some point. Anybody else want in? Badger Boy, are you... send me an invite, Badger. A friend request. For the lore. How's it going, First Tasty? Do I have an IRL Pico? No. I have an IRL freelancer. That I got to build and paint at some point. An event to unlock a cap ship into the game for use by players. Does that sound like a good idea? Yeah, maybe. I could see something where you have to board a ship that's disabled and that'd be a cool mission. A javelin is disabled. You have to go in and rescue people from the javelin, drag them to to get medical attention. And in the meantime, players have to man the turrets themselves and fight off waves of enemies while you're trying to rescue people from a down javelin. What do you think the person who finds all the Pico balls will get? They'll unlock the Sacred Dragon and they'll get a one wish. That's what I understand when you find all 7 balls. Badger among men? Okay. The hell? You sent me an... Oh, let me send you a friend request. You sent me a party invite. I'm gonna invite everybody. Hold on. Accept the friend request. You have to accept the friend request there, Badger. It's all right. Highest band for concepting missions. Maybe, maybe not. You sent me. I don't see you. You're gonna have to join in on me. Is what'll have to happen. Pico Shenron will appear. Yes. Should I melt my Idris for a Kraken? Depends on what you want to do. If you want to do trade missions and you want just a pure carrier, yes. If you want something that's has a little bit of carrier but is more just built on firepower, then go with the Idris. I think we find out it was Darth Pico all along. Yeah. And then the Argos, man the Argos to land on the Javelin. It's the only ship that will fit. Yeah. Oh, Troll and Badger. That sounded like an awesome mission. It'd be a cool idea. But I don't know how practical it'd be because it would only you'd have to have hundreds of people to recover for it to be really playable, and it wouldn't make a lot of sense. Maybe a search and rescue mission, like a failed invasion of Tiber, or a massive Vanduul incursion leaves a bunch of wreckage of ships, and so your job is to go in and recover all of the trapped starmen in the region, and then fight off the Vanduul while doing so. That could work, and you could have like a bunch of different stuff. Is there an Anvil cap shipment coming? That's the theory because of an audio piece that's playing on the floor. We'll show, you'll hear it here shortly, I think. All right. Let's do this. Turn off the music real quickly. I'll be right back, and then we'll get started. Remember, if you can't join on me, if you're already my friend, then you can just jump in on me when I launch the game. And we'll wait a few minutes for everyone to get there, because it's going to take us about 30 minutes to go through this whole thing. Come on. All right. All right, we got to get the smoking jacket on because we got to do the lore tour here. Because it's a museum event, so you got to have the smoking jacket on for the museum event. Ooh, that is an interesting idea. Use there we go. Use a bunch of Argo MP UV personnel carriers posing as refugees / ships in distress. Can take in aboard a Javelin, and then commando teams disembark and take the ship. You fit more people than many think. Yeah, it could be. Gotta throw the jacket on, yes. All right, let's get started. Go to launch in the persistent universe. All right, with that, let me move over to... Should be right here in the right place. Yeah, here we are. Give music tour. I'm not giving you music. You gotta have the smoking jack for this background. Oh yeah, that happens sometimes. Recover people while shooing away harvesters. Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. Yeah. Do you think the new Anvil Longbow will be a carrier or more of a brawler ship? I think since Anvil makes the arrow and bows shoot arrows, it's probably a carrier. I doubt a carrier, unless it's a dedicated carrier, unlike the Unless it's like a dedicated, unlike the Polaris, Anvil tends to make armor with engines and guns. So I would assume like an upgunned Perseus would be my guess. Something that's more of a get in your face, I'm going to punch you in the face over and over again. Something that would counter the heavy missile reliance, the heavy torpedo reliance of the Perseus. The Polaris. Because if it was just a carrier, it would just be a carrier. The problem is, here's the thing. Everyone says everything's a carrier. Whenever someone's like, carrier, it's like the community is like the seagulls from Finding Nemo. Like everything is carrier. Whenever there's something that's big happening, is it a carrier? Is it a pocket carrier? Can this be a carrier? Carrier. Forever. I'm tired of it. I don't think we're going to see a carrier though. Like people are basing it off of a leak of a name called the Longbow from SC Leaks, which may or may not even be the name. Go off of what Anvil does, what they do the best, and what's lacking. We're certainly not lacking in carriers because we do also have the Kraken. What we're lacking in is just knife fighters, brawlers, in terms of that size ship. Yeah, the Longbow may have been a bomber. It was a Longbow, and it was in Wing Commander. Okay, it's also a light patrol frigate in Serenity. Could be an artillery piece. The Anvil Hawk literally has armored guns. If you're looking for a combat-oriented capital ship, you see the Idris. That's what the Idris is. Hey, Silkies. Yeah, you're subscribed. You should be able to post clips in chat there, Admiral. Because you're not talking about a Corvette at that point. You're talking about a frigate, and you already have something like that. What's up, buddy?
Hey, what's up?
Do you think there's even a Anvil capital carrier ship? I don't think they would make it. It's not really Anvil's design philosophy. If anyone was to make a capital carrier ship, it would either be Aegis or RSI, would be my thought. Yeah, combat-oriented carrier is an Idris. That's what it is. It has space for two to three Gladiuses. It's fitting easily, and you can launch them from that. Anything bigger than the Idris is going to be too big for to be used. It's not going to be a Corvette. A Corvette is the size of a Polaris. And if you had nothing but a Polaris, something the size of a Polaris, and you wanted to put more than one fighter on that, it would have no weapons on it. You'd have to have a trade-off. So what you have is the Polaris is a missile boat with a carrier option. You have this Anvil capital ship, which would be, in my mind, a brawler, a gunfighter, with no carrier option, and then in between you have the Idris, which is a slightly bigger ship that has a carrier option and a lot of guns and missiles, like torpedoes. It has pretty much everything you need. So, but it's also bigger and more expensive.
Stand clear of disembarking.
Would you think of Kruger making a carrier like a Gonzati that can hold a few P-52s? I'd love to see, I think we're definitely missing a trolley ship, a ship that could store ships for long travels and in terms of like taking it from place to place. Like the Crusader carrier, yeah. I'm really tired of putting ships inside of other ships. I mean, it makes sense. It's just... We need a ferry, yeah. We're going to need a ferry eventually. It's going to be gameplay that needs to happen. So. Yeah, the Jupiter. Well, to be fair, Drake Leviathan surprised everyone. The Drake Kraken, yeah. Didn't really surprise people. I think most people were expecting it to be a flying station. That's what it ended up being, so. Yes, Star Citizen needs drop pods. It does need drop pods. In lore, the UE is moving away from Aegis and towards Anvil and its military ships. My thought is that Anvil ship would be a replacement for the Idris. If it would be the same size. But you also got to think about it in terms of what CIG is currently designing, and they tend to be staying away from the larger ships. They want to do things like the Perseus and the Polaris, and the Kraken. The Kraken's about the same size as the Idris as well. But that sort of thing, like they're tending towards smaller capital ships than larger capital ships. But we'll see. Maybe it could be the pocket carrier people have been wanting. No, I don't think so.
Hello and welcome. Celebrated since 2541. Invictus
It could be designed around an arrow, and since it's the smaller fighter, they can use it for a couple of smaller ships. It's the Idris. What you just described was the Idris. Now, that's not saying that CIG doesn't basically make its own ships non-functional anymore, like completely removes the the point of other ships. An up-gunned armored Carrick, something like that, yeah. Be more excited about detachable sections like the Cat, but yeah, I guess there's got to be some reliable way to get these shorter range ships around. Yeah. Caterpillar is already a snub carrier if you want it to be. Yeah, but you wouldn't be able to carry like arrows or gladiuses even.
Alright, jumping in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Jump. I'm jumping.
Navy flight training can provide the necessary training for a variety of jobs in the private sector, from combat to hauling applications.
Everyone thinks it's a huge ship. Maybe it's a new type of snub fighter. The reason why it's thinking it's a huge ship is because of what you'll hear over the stuff. The Bengal is the way. The other way is to make other better ship choices.
Invictus Launch Week is a great opportunity to see your teams at work. As members of the Empire, it's your right to inspect.
Make a ship for recon only.
UEE Navy.
What are you looking for there for commands there, Mac? What do you want to know? We're gonna wait for more people to show up, then we'll do the tour. I'm listening for when he's talking, see if we can't catch it. They painted purple.
Welcome to the Invictus shipboard. All of the vehicles you see on display are this year's additions to the fleet. With the
Cat can't reliably carry anything larger than a Dragonfly or Merlin. We'll get in the way. Yeah. Garbage barge. Vandal King ships do exist.
While fighters like the Hornet and the Gladius have become synonymous with the UEE Navy, the truth is that
Welcome. We're waiting for everyone else to show up.
some models may
Calm down, Badger. Calm down. I know you're losing your shit, but calm down. Deep breaths. Woosah. Woosah. Deep breaths.
Although Invictus is a celebration of the men and women who are about to ship off to begin their training,
Is it tour time? It is.
active service members much needed recreation.
You do have time to make it if you want to join in. We'll wait for you, Parky. Don't worry about it. This one is not as long as the other ones because I know all of this stuff already. Gigi, you're almost there? Okay. Why not a pocket carrier from Argo to carry Argo cargo? Build for multiple Argo cargoes. The Argo cargo inception. The Argo multiple Argo cargo utility vehicle carrier. The Argo MMPUV UV. UVC. The Argo cargo. At some point, I'd like to see them develop a supermassive ship, something that takes over the role of a station. Doesn't need to be controllable, more like a new location. That's kind of what the Kraken is designed to do, especially the Kmart, the Kraken Pioneer. All right, Renovo. Wait, under New Babbage. Ouch. The Argo Foreman, capital ship barge with 4 MPUVs supporting and mining the salvage. Here we go. The Argo Barjo. The Pioneer is more like a Walmart. The Merchantman's more like is more the Kmart.
The time on the tradition is since 2541.
I think an Argo with a size 7 weapon would be totally reasonable. It would also be bonkers, and I love it. The whole series already has a concept art with it hauling ships. Yeah, but it's more hauling ships like it would be like driving it in cargo. I'm talking about like a ferry in the way that you have drive-up ferries, where you drive your car onto a ferry, and then that ferry transports your car across a river or something like that. Something where you can like fly your ship in, park your ship in the ferry, and then have a space for you to chill out and wait, and like kind of a place for you to sit down and wait for the travel to happen. And then when you get to your location, you can get out and get into your ship.
Navy flight training can provide the necessary training for a variety of jobs in the private sector. From combat to hauling applications, naval pilots receive the kind of training and experience that employers will seek out.
Kind of like a Kraken build with like a large ship Argo cargo MPU. Yeah. I need an arrow with a Nova turret on top. The Argo Hemi? Does it have a Hemi? We need a cap ship with large limbs that wildly flails around and randomly propels in different directions. Wacky waving inflatable arm tube band. The capital ship. The Kraken is a ferry. Will be a good earner, I'm sure. It is. It works sort of like that. The problem is, it's in terms of like internal like storage space, like being able to get out and hang out inside for a while. I don't know what Kmart you've been in, but I think Target and Kmart has been one of the dirtier superstores that I've been in. Well, the reason why people call it the Kmart is because it's the Kraken Pioneer, so the Kmart. It sounds like Outlaw Star, yeah.
Their fighters, exploration ships, and transport are on the front line every day keeping the Empire safe. We look forward to our continued relationship with the
Her can vary anything razor size and smaller, but likely choice for racing teams. Oh yeah, for sure. It's definitely the new ship for the Daymar Rally. Is definitely the Herc. Sure, I got you.
UEE Navy is
Check Discord if you want to see like, the underside of New Babbage. I've seen it before, I think, but
Opening on MacArthur in the new year. Together,
this is it.
naval and Anvil engineers and scientists are looking to develop the next generation of ship technology.
You heard that. That's the announcement. That's the announcement. That's the Anvil Capital ship. That's why people are thinking the Anvil Capital ship, because that announcement says specifically MacArthur. Anvil and the UE Navy are working together for MacArthur. MacArthur, the only reason why anyone would be in MacArthur, well, that's interesting. The only reason why anyone would be in MacArthur is because of
It's your right to inspect the latest acquisitions of the UEE Navy.
oh gosh, what is it? The reason why I'd be at MacArthur is because you're building a capital ship. The things that are built in MacArthur are the Bengals and the Crucible, not Crucibles. Why am I saying this? Bengals and the.
Let me go down for some reason.
Why am I blanking on the damn thing? Retribution. The Retribution, the biggest ships in the fleet. There's also basic training there too. That's where they do basic training. But not the Redemption. We'll still wait for a little bit. Aside from Crusader, which ship manufacturer do you think is the most humane? Probably Argo or Misk. Are we at the more part? We are. We're doing a lore tour. So we're going to be doing a lore tour of the floor for Anvil. So for those of you who don't know what a lore tour is, it's where we're going to go about the floor of ILW and kind of tell people a little bit of the history of the stuff around there. So. Does the Kraken have an onboard quantum refinery? I remember the Kraken having something. Maybe it's an early fuel scoop or something. Something like that, yeah.
You can take away my spaceship.
All right, I gotta mute
You can
that
take
real
away
quick.
my space suit. You can even take away my space lasers.
Sorry about that. Judafist. Welcome. Well, the Longbow was a Wing Commander bomber. That's true. But we don't know if it's the name is that's the name of that actual ship. That's just based off of a leak from a from SE Leaks, which isn't always the names that they go with. Those things change as well. Crusader isn't humane. Half their ships are war crimes in waiting. That's true as well. What happened to the Lynx Rover concept? I have no idea. The Lynx Rover should have happened at some point. What exactly qualifies as a ship as a Corvette these days? Smaller than a frigate, bigger than everything else. Here's the answer there. NQ1 is CIG's like their classifications make no sense. They're arbitrary. There's no reasons to classify the way they do, other than they do. First person to tell your favorite Anvil ship to Badger Boy in Twitch chat will he'll give you a sub to the channel. It could be a code name. It could be.
The UEE Navy couldn't be prouder of our partnership with Anvil Aerospace.
All right.
Their fighters, exploration ships, and transports are on the front line every day, keeping the Empire safe.
Let's see what's actually
We
here.
look forward to our continued relationship with them and invite you to take a look at their work up close. For centuries, Invictus has been a time for friends and family to come together and celebrate the pillars of duty, service, and civic pride.
NPCs are getting impatient. Yeah. I love the in-game announcements, but I would never heard it alone because I already have all the ships from today. I want to rent them. Yeah, I'm always scratching my head about the classifications. Yeah, there it is again. Yeah, you probably heard it just now. We're 1 minute away on the train. Okay, Conti. I like how Crusader says they're a humanitarian company, yet all the ships from them are bombers, with the MSR and Herc being exceptions. And the Herc is used to transport military vehicles to the ground normally. That's what it's originally built for, yeah. I hope it's a cap ship. I don't think we need another fighter from Anvil. It's probably not a fighter, just because where it's being built is specifically called MacArthur. And MacArthur is never... MacArthur is never built a place where you build anything but capital ships. Crusader ships drop righteousness.
Welcome to the Victor's Shipwall. All of the vehicles you see on display are this year's additions to the fleet.
Now the M2 is the base variant. The C2 is the cut down variant, civilian variant.
Have a look to see how each of these ships will help defend the Empire.
When do we get the Tony Z breakdown 4-hour captain table? I'm working on it. I'm thinking not this weekend, but next weekend. But we'll see. Really looking forward to seeing missed cargo haulers everywhere in space. Stations feel empty without them right now.
The UEE Navy is proud to announce that Anvil Aerospace has been invited to a joint engineering research facility.
This is it.
Opening on MacArthur in the new year.
Opening MacArthur.
Naval and Anvil engineers and scientists are looking to develop the next generation of ship technology.
You don't go to MacArthur unless you're building big. Definitely not going to be a fighter. Are we waiting for anybody else? Is everybody here? We're waiting for anybody else. Is anyone else still coming in?
I don't know. We're here.
Yeah, I'm checking the chat. Oh, we've got Orthodoxy still coming by.
Variety of jobs in the private sector, from combat to hauling applications, naval pilots receive the kind of training and experience
Okay.
that employers will seek out.
All right. All right, gather around for the guided tour. Gather around. My name is Paul Shelley. I am a local historian, and I will be walking you through some of these ships. Before we get started, let's learn a little bit about Anvil Aerospace. Anvil Aerospace is not the original design of, the original kind of origin of Anvil Aerospace. It's actually Case Aerospace. Case Aerospace was founded by, I want to say Leonard Case, but I always get him confused with Arnold, who's the founder of Anvil. But Leonard Case, in the 2500s, or the 2600s, he originally was an RSI designer who designed the RSI luxury yacht called the Star Rider, I believe. But he designed luxury yachts for RSI. He eventually stopped doing that because RSI did not listen to him very well and wasn't doing things that he wanted to. So as a result, he split off and founded his own company called Case Aerospace to create the Cosmos Sloop. The Cosmos Sloop was a luxury yacht that did very well in the luxury manufacturing line. However, it was released around the exact same time as the beginning of the Second Tevaran War, so it never really took off. However, during the Tevaran War, Case was approached the UNE or the UPEN, the United Planets of Earth Navy, approached. No, it was the UE at the time. Yeah, it was. The UEE Navy was approaching any ship manufacturer who could help them counter the resurgent Tevaran. And his research into how the Tevaran ships worked eventually led to the creation of the Hurricane, which we'll see here and we'll talk a little bit more about, which kicked off and was very successful. However, once the war had ended, Case Aerospace was charged with building a brand new replacement for the aging Perseus as a patrol ship to patrol the Xi'an front. However, unfortunately, Case died in an aerospace accident shortly after the war, and the contract eventually fell through. Several years later, in the 28th century, a man by the name of J. Harris Arnold? Yeah, I was right. J. Harris Arnold. I remember that right. J. Harris Arnold became obsessed with Case's designs while he was in an engineering school to build ships. He eventually took a lot of that inspiration and formed his own company called Anvil Aerospace in Nova Kiev Terra. There, he tried to innovate some next-generation ship technology. Unfortunately, during his time with his company, he did not improve relations very well, did not do very good with the UEE at the time under the Measures. But once the Measures fell, he was approached by the UEE to kind of help them change some of the Navy, and they were so impressed with his work that they eventually would hire Anvil to the point where Anvil is pretty much synonymous with the new UEE. So with that in mind, I will want to mention that there are 3 distinct eras of Anvil designs: the 28th century and before, the 29th century, and the 30th century. So if you hear me talk about each of these specific time periods, note that I'm talking about 3 distinct design periods that they went through. Let's start with the most recent ship in the Anvil fleet over here, the Anvil Arrow.
For centuries, Victus has been a time for friends and family to come together and celebrate the pillars of duty, service, and
Meet the replacement for the Aegis Gladius. The Anvil Arrow is a very recent kind of creation by Anvil. It's the lightest ship they've ever produced. It is designed as a light fighter replacement for the Gladius, and it was released very recently in 2947, I believe, 2948, and is still undergoing its adoption process by the UEE Navy. It is the replacement for the venerable Gladius, and you can still see it on a lot of UEE recruitment posters. It's pretty popular. But it's also definitely a design of the 30th century, a time period where Anvil was really finding its footing as a combat manufacturer, specifically of fighters. So with that, let's move on from here to the one behind it, the Gladiator. The Gladius Gladiator. This was built at the end of the 29th century and the beginning of the 30th century. Keep up, please. This was built at the end of the 29th century and early 30th century. So we're looking at a design that's at the cusp and change of Anvil's design philosophy, away from being their kind of experimental phase in the 29th century into their more fighter-oriented and pure combat ship-oriented reality of the 30th century. Now, the story is actually very interesting. You see this down here that's opened up? These are torpedoes. Size 5 torpedoes. So they're not the biggest torpedoes you can have, but it wasn't originally designed to hold size 5 torpedoes. The story of the Gladiator is one of intrigue and con artists. In the late 29th century, the UEE Navy was approached. Let's step away from this because it's a little loud. The UEE Navy was approached by a company that said that they built a stealth torpedo, a guided torpedo which could launch stealth torpedoes that could penetrate shields and were nearly undetectable by sensors. So in the buildup of building this torpedo, the UEE was told that the only way that this torpedo would work is if whichever ship fired it guided this torpedo in with a guidance system, kind of like a laser targeting system. No ships in the UEE Navy could build this laser targeting system that were small enough to loiter in an area to not get detected or destroyed. The Retaliator could do it, but it's a little too big. So they went to Anvil and asked them to build a ship specifically for this type of torpedo. They came up with the T3A Gladiator. The T3A Gladiator was built just for this torpedo and this torpedo alone. And the first round, the first development, the first prototype was built and tested when the UEE realized it was being conned. This torpedo never existed. It was only an off-the-shelf torpedo with off-the-shelf parts, which didn't do what it was supposed to do. However, by that point, they'd already ordered 180 Gladiators. So they had to do something. What they did was completely redesign the Gladiator to be a two-person bomber that swapped out its bay, its original bay that held that torpedo, to more of a traditional bay. Now, in the process, this bay is now modular. You can now swap out this bay from torpedoes to regular ordnance or even search and rescue. So it actually serves multiple purposes. It becomes much more of a bespoke ship. The secondary ship, now this is just my theory, but the secondary seat up on top, I believe, was originally the guidance seat to guide in the torpedo. And they replaced it with the those turrets to make it more of a gunfighter. Where the Gladiator really shone, well, of course, by the way, this changed the Gladiator from the T3 Gladiator to the T8 Gladiator. So the T8A Gladiator was used very effectively by the UE Navy against the Vandal, replacing the old and aging Aegis Typhoon light bomber to mixed results. But the squadron that's actually referenced in the little plaques over there at the front, the squadron that used this to the great effect was Squadron 214, the Black Crows, who famously used this in multiple bombing runs, including the famous Virgil raid, which you can read a little bit about if you look at those placards. Now from there, let's go all the way around the Carrick, and we'll talk about the Iron Hawk, the Hawk. Follow me. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not the Hawk yet. This is the Terrapin. We're not going to do the Hawk. Come over here, over here. We're doing the Terrapin. Over here, we're doing the Terrapin. The Hawk is after the Terrapin. My bad. So, meet the Terrapin. This is the U4A Terrapin. Technically, this is the U4A-3 Terrapin, Deep Space Armored Scout Ship. Now, when Harris was first developing the Anvil Aerospace, the first ship that he was able to build for Anvil was the Terrapin. This is the first kind of step outside of Aegis Dynamics that the UEE was willing to take. With the stretched assets of the UEE military after the revolution being super stretched, being very, very not able to coordinate very well, they needed something that could serve as a scout ship, but also as a deep space monitoring ship that didn't require a huge capital ship. So the Anvil Aerospace developed the Terrapin. Now, the Terrapin is actually a reference to a turtle, an old Earth turtle. And it's built like a turtle. The whole purpose of the Terrapin is to fly into an area and be able to covertly monitor the local activity, from communications to sensors to anything they want to. In fact, if you look over here to the inside, you see the highlighted in red chair there is actually the main seat for operations for it. Not the pilot seat, but this main operations center seat. This is the thing that really starts showing off the design characteristics of Anvil ships. They tend to have two seats, or at least options for two seats, with the center seat being one of the main operation seats. You'd have a pilot and an kind of a radar operator, and the radar operator would work in the center here to monitor areas. Now, if they got caught and got into trouble, the Terrapin was built with lots and lots of armor, so it could flee while taking a lot of punishment. In fact, there is so much armor on the Terrapin, it can't breathe. It actually keeps in its heat, and if it's left unchecked, will cook the entire crew. If you see this little flap up here at the top, that flap is designed to open to cool the ship in order to allow for the coolers to function as they should be. So that it's got so much armor that it's actually a detriment to the ship if it doesn't function properly. Now, because of the popularity of the Terrapin, it was actually used by the same pilots who flew it in the military in the civilian market. They would get aftermarket civilian Terrapins and use them to great effect. This is what inspired Anvil to change the ship market as we know it by starting to release military and civilian ships at the same time. But before we get to that point, let's talk about the Anvil Hawk, the Iron Hawk. Meet the conclusion of Project Brawler. Built in the 2935, Project Brawler was an attempt to kind of bridge the gap of a bunch of missing components that the UE Navy lacked. It was designed specifically to be a close-range dogfighting, logistic support, and ground attack ship. Its purpose was to do three things that no one ship could do at the same time. As a result, two entries were made for Project Brawler. One was the Anvil Hawk. The other one was the Aegis Bearcat. The Bearcat was a fantastic dogfighter, but it didn't do well against ground targets. Whereas the Hawk wasn't a great dogfighter, but it did well against ground targets. It could dogfight well enough and it could hit the ground targets pretty well and did a decent job of protecting ships as it needed to do. As a result, the Anvil Hawk was chosen over the Bearcat. In fact, it got its nickname, the Iron Hawk, from some of the people who were there to witness its test trials. One of the admirals called it the Iron Hawk, this little Iron Hawk, because of how tough it was and how rough and tumble it is. If you notice it, a lot of the parts are actually stolen from other Anvil ships: the Gladiator, the Hornet, and the Terrapin. Most of this is just a clever reuse of other scrap parts, of other parts that were on other Anvil ships to create a new thing. Now, because Anvil develops its civilian and military models at the same time, the Hawk was no different. So when the Hawk eventually got released, it became very popular with bounty hunters because its ability to dogfight close in range as well as attack ground targets meant it had the same kind of capabilities that most bounty hunters were looking for. It became very popular, and since then, there's actually two aftermarket kits made by Consolidated Outland for the Anvil Hawk. One is called the Dire Hawk, and the other one's called the Shadow Hawk. The Dire Hawk adds 2 additional guns to the platform, and the Shadow Hawk makes it a little bit more stealth. Both of which are currently being investigated by Anvil to make their own bespoke craft. That's the U9A Hawk. And also this was made in the 30th century. So you'll notice that this is definitely a fighter. All of the 30th century craft are definitely fighters. Did someone say something? Man, if you're bored, you can leave. Anywho, let's move on to the other fighters of the UEE. Let's talk about the Carrick next, because we haven't talked about the Carrick. What you see before you is the Anvil Carrick. Now, this big ship is an exploration vessel designed for long-range scout and recon, as well as mostly just science and survey missions. Now, the thing about the Carrick that's important to understand is that the Carrick was designed similarly to the Gladiator. It was designed after kind of a tragedy. There was a ship, a large capital ship, that was sent out to do a science reconnaissance mission of an anomaly in a system. And because that ship wasn't prepared for the system, all hands were lost aboard that ship, aboard that capital ship. The UE Navy wanted to cover it up, so they covered it up, and instead of dealing with the problem, they decided that they would build a new ship to in the future deal with Anvil, or to deal with exploration. That ship is the Anvil Carrick. Now, unlike most of the other ships out there that Anvil has created, the Anvil Carrick is one of the few ships that was not granted the ability to build a civilian model alongside the military model. It took many years for the Anvil Carrick to get a civilian model. But the Carrick has proved itself time and time again as a very valuable asset, going long range and high endurance missions to very remote places to do very dangerous and intense surveying and scientific work for the military. Often in very top secret missions, where they would rarely communicate back in with home base except for at very specific locations. As a result, there are very many mysterious tales of disappearing Carricks, of Carricks being infected with biological contaminants and having to be destroyed. There's many dignitaries stories of many different Carricks that have very spooky pasts to them. And over here, as you'll see, this is a ship that was built specifically for the Carrick to help it. It's the C8 Pisces. It kind of comes along with the rest of the ship as well. All right, with that, let's move on to talk about the most of the 30th century additions to the Anvil lineup. The Anvil fightering. Oh yeah, this was also built in the early 29th century. So this is kind of about that experimentation era. You can kind of tell that because it's a big ship compared to the other ships. All right, we're going to do a little bit of wonky things. Follow me. We're going to look at it in terms of the historic accuracy and the historical direction, so we can understand a little bit more about Anvil itself. Here we have the Case Aerospace Hurricane. Now you notice I said Case Aerospace. That's because this is not an Anvil ship. This is the ship that Case built specifically to help win the Second Tevaran War. Now, during the Second Tevaran War, what became very clear early on was that the Tevarans' new strategy and tactics involved manually directing shield strength and shield direction to protect from oncoming fire, which meant that almost all Tevaran heavy ships and even capital ships had a dedicated shield operator that would manually move the shield facing. So we're not talking about like redirecting power, we're talking actually pointing the shield, the phalanx shields. So what Case did was he realized he could fight fire with fire. At the time, very few UEE ships actually had multiple operators, unless they were large capital ships or large support ships. So what he did was just copy the Tevaran. He built a two-seater fighter. However, this fighter specifically was designed to counter the two-seater defenders of the Tevaran. What would happen is in the very back, this big turret had 4 size 3 cannons on it, mostly ballistic, that would swoop in with its pilot maintaining kind of a good course while the gunner would fire on the target. Now, the initial barrage would be blocked by the shields, but as the Hurricane would turn and move bank around for another pass, another ship would fly in at the same direct path, while the ship that was banking would then turn in and fight at another angle. So with the Hurricane constantly moving, zooming and booming around, and constantly hitting a ship at different angles, it would be impossible for the Tevaran directing the shields to stop all of the incoming fire. And once the Tevaran ship was hit a couple of times, it was much less dangerous and could be destroyed. After the fact, the UE Navy was so impressed by the Hurricane's performance that they asked Case to build that patrol ship. As we talked about, he died, didn't work out. Case ended up having to be folded. It actually was purchased by a separate company and has ceased to exist until Arnold was able to relight the ignition for the Case's designs based off his own love for them. Now let's move over to the thing that would really put Anvil on the map, the Anvil Hornet. All right, so meet the F-7A and F-7C Hornets. Now, this is the Mark II variant of the F-7A right here. But the F-7C is very similar to the modern F-7A Mark I. So, the F-7A was built to replace the Avenger. The Avenger was built specifically as a carrier ship, but it wasn't doing very well against the Vanduul threat. So the Hornets were built to deal with the Vanduul threat. Taking heavy inspiration from the Hurricane, the F-7A, though being single-seater, the F-7A, though being a single-seater, did very well in terms of its performance against the the Vanduul. In fact, the F-7A is so successful, it is the most successful fighter in the history of humanity. The Hornet has flown more missions, has more kills than any other fighter in history. This is the best fighter that humanity has ever built. And it really is where Anvil got its start. After the Terrapin was a great success, we have the creation of the Hornet. But because of the Terrapin's success in the civilian market, Anvil asked the UEE if they could build a civilian version of the Hornet alongside the military version. And to their surprise, the UEE said they'd like to. At the time, the UEE was stretched thin and wanted to try to get as many civilian militias and security personnel access to as good of quality weapons, armors, and ships as they could. So the idea of building a fighter that was specifically designed to take on the Vanduul and a civilian version that only was slightly marked down from that was very appealing. Thus, the F-7A, the F-7C was released shortly after the F-7A to great sales, and was really what put Anvil on the map. Now, since then, the F-7A is being retired and replaced by the F-8 Lightning, the F-8A, but this is kind of the origin of Anvil being the prime choice for the UE Navy. Over here, we're going to talk about this, and we'll talk about the F-8. Meet the smoothest ride any Marine or Army personnel has ever experienced in the UEE. That's not my opinion either. That's actually a quote from the from actual pilots who flew this thing. The Valkyrie is specifically designed as a troop transport. It has something like 40 troops, 20 to 40 capacity for its troops, and capacity to carry one large vehicle inside of it. The thing about the Valkyrie is that it was developed before anyone knew they needed it. The UEE had known since the Mezer era that it lacked combat dropships. It needed heavy lift ships like the Anvil or the Crusader Hercules, but it also needed troop transports like the Valkyrie. But it really didn't ask for help for this until the early 29th century. Now, Anvil, after its successful release of the Hornet, decided that they were going to use a powerful supercomputer to try to predict the future of ships technology that the UEE would need. And they were specifically looking for something not combat-based because they wanted to diversify their portfolio. After years of this supercomputer computing every status and everything they needed in it, they came out with a couple of options, one of which was a combat dropship to help reconquer lands targeted by the Vanduul. So in secret, Vanduul began development of the Valkyrie, eventually releasing it when the UEE decided it was time to tell people they needed a dropship. They asked for a dropship with the exact specifications that their computer had told them to do, and Anvil just handed them the Valkyrie, already tested and built, which pretty much secured their position as being the dropship for the UEE. Since then, it's been built with a civilian version as well. Again, this is the 39th century, which we're talking about the experimental phase of Anvil's design. And you notice this is not really a combat ship, but a support ship. And since its release as a civilian, it actually has a lot of popular, it's very popular with miners and surveyors who use the ship to quickly go from place to place to gather resources or to survey and map locations in safety, because they can also store a lot of equipment or even vehicles to help them make their whole trek a little bit easier. All right, let's go to the last ship, then we'll talk about the one and only ground vehicle. Meet the top of the top, the creme de la creme, the scum on top of the cream, the F-8 Lightning. Now, with the continuing Vanduul threat, the UEE Navy needed something that was tougher, meaner, bigger, and just had more guns. So, Anvil was one of 3 companies that submitted an application for this next generation of fighter to replace the F-7A. RSI introduced the RSI Scorpius. The Aegis introduced the Aegis Dynamics Saber. And Anvil released the F-8 Lightning. The F-8 Lightning was eventually chosen, though those other 2 still do serve in the military in limited capacities as well. The F-8 Lightning is being replacing pretty much every fighter in the UEE fleet, including the Gladius, over several years, and is the premier fighter used by the 999th Test Squadron when they're doing air shows and the like. So if you see the red Lightning out there in the turnstile, that's actually a 999th ship. All right, with that, let's move on to talk about the Anvil Ballista. Follow close.
Engineering research facility that will be opening on MacArthur in the new year. Together, they
Give me a moment, but I'll meet you down there. All right. This is the last bit of the tour. Meet the Anvil Ballista. Now, the Ballista was developed in that experimental time frame in the 29th century when Anvil was doing lots of different things like exploration ships and cargo or drop ships and all sorts of things. The Ballista was designed to fill in the role of anti-air after the fall of the Mezzers. Now, it's important to remember that after the fall of the Mezzers, many ship manufacturers went out of business, and so new ship manufacturers like Misk and Crusader and Anvil stepped in to replace many of those ship manufacturers, sometimes multiples at once. Specifically, Anvil built the Ballista as a means to add some needed air defenses for the missing vehicles like the Tumbril, which had gone out of business many years before. So the Ballista was designed to fill in a role that was needed that had been fallen out of place. But again, it's an experiment. Now, the Ballista was found as used by the Marines specifically as a force multiplier, as a way of having anti-air cover without having to pay for expensive fighter cover and such. So often Marines who were posted on very distant or fringe worlds with the Vanduul would be given, a squad or platoon of Marines might be given 1 or 2 of these to operate in defense of a town or a city. In fact, there was one event in the mid-29th century where a group of Marines fought off, specifically one lone Marine, fought off an entire Vanduul raiding party with just one Ballista. Now, it's an interesting story, but it's also a lie. You see, those Marines were actually getting drunk and on duty. And the youngest one of them was told to go to town to get more booze. And that's when the Vanduul attack happened. He panicked, ran to the local mines to be able to hide, and on the way there, he met a gravely wounded miner who demanded that the Marine give him access to the ballista. He did, then hid in the mines. Once the attack was over, the Marine climbed out of the mines and retrieved the body of the now dead miner, and after he brought the miner out, people found him and told him that he had fought off the Vanduul. The miner himself had actually fought off the Vanduul and died. Now, this story wasn't revealed until many years after the fact. The Marine was hailed as a hero, paraded around the UEE as a great victor, as a great hero, and the story as a kind of a feel-good piece and a victory against the Vanduul. So that's probably the most famous part about the ballista. So that is the ballista. That is Anvil Aerospace. Hopefully you enjoyed the tour, and if not, hope to see you all again soon. Enjoy your ILW. Actually, $5, by the way. I didn't see that. I didn't see anything because I was going on I was in the tour mode. So, thank you, Kay. Still not as pretty as the Redeemer. Redeemer's trash. Fight me. What do you think you'd add more utility? Polaris, Hawk, or Mantis? To the Polaris, Hawk or Mantis? Probably a Hawk. Well, the Mantis maybe. It depends what you're doing, though. Then the UE Marines, yeah.
Ever take away my space game.
$10. I don't see what that was. I'll rerun it, but I don't have anything up proper, so. Yeah, if you like that and you didn't see all of it, please do check out my videos on YouTube. They are available on YouTube for anybody who's interested in them. Thank you guys for coming in. Let me go through what the heck was that. Dope tour, the tour, bro. Let me do it again so people can hear it. Should be resent here shortly. Looking sus. Yeah, I am. Always. That was one. Thank you for watching. Yeah. SC might be one of the few space games where you can have a tour of an in-game expo done by players providing in-game lore. Probably is. Yes, the ballista, perfect ground vehicle for killing itself while shooting missiles. Yeah. Scorpius is better than Hurricane. Debatable. I see the Hawk is more of a Boba Fett type ship, solo hunter. Yeah. There it is.
Hey, a tip.
When it's time to party, we will party hard.
Sorry, I have to stop it because otherwise it'll mute the whole damn stream. Smoking Jack with Space Helmet Dapper as fuck, you know it. All right, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for all the stuff and things. Let's do. Okay. Thank you for the tips and everything else like that. I'm gonna call it a night. Thank you guys for coming in and hanging out with us. Like I say every time, make sure you subscribe to YouTube. If you're watching this on Twitch, make sure you follow us. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you follow us on Twitch. We're trying to reach the 10K mark on YouTube, and we're trying to reach the 15K mark on Twitch. We're currently, as of right now, damn it, stop it, Sinalaya. I have to stop this because it's going to screw up the YouTube video. Whatever. Thank you so much for them subs that are sent Alaya. Spike was here. Cyberpunk Cafe. Aria Dios. Caldero Turrican. Thank you so much. YouTube is very angry about that sort of thing. So Is there any Crucible lore? Not yet. Not really. It's just, we don't know when it was built. We just know it was built. Mixmaster next time. Yes. This is, man, thank you. Thank you for coming through. This is probably the one I have the most research in because I have done a full, or I've written out a full video on the entire history of Anvil and its ships, which I am working on a 3-part series. The first part will be out this weekend or some shortly after this weekend for you guys to check out. So, want to raid Baron? Is he streaming? We can do that. Thank you guys again for watching us. Like I say every time, hope to see you again soon. But if I don't, hope to see you someday in the black. And remember, Ex Historia ad Astra.